my last video, I touched on a story called Night Woods. I quipped that I may have misremembered it because I suspected it must be lost media. I thought this because I had only checked the usual search engines and came up empty. On a whim last week, I decided to check the trusty Internet Archive. I typed in Night Woods, and this book was the result. I knew right away that this was the book because the cover image is from the story Night Woods. Night Frights is a collection of 13 retold scary stories written by J.B. Stamper. She's notable for writing the Tales from the Midnight Hour series, which is often credited for inspiring scary stories to tell in the dark. While both Tales for the Midnight Hour and Night Frights lack the haunting illustrations of Stephen Gammell, Stamper deepens her characters and situations with specifics and textures, and this makes up for the lack of visuals. The collection begins with Graveyard Dare, a familiar story of a kid dared by his friends to visit the local cemetery at night. Like a lot of stories retold here, this is a tale with several variations. The most remembered version comes from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which ends with the girl who takes the dare dying of fright after she mistakes the knife pinning her dress to the ground for an undead hand grabbing her from beyond the grave. In Stamper's take, the kid, a boy in this version, grabs what he thinks is a tree branch and runs it back to his waiting friends, who are horrified to see he's brought back the arm of a skeleton. Bloody Mary follows a young girl named Mary who has a nightmarish encounter with the spirit during a sleepover with her friends. This wasn't my first experience with the Bloody Mary myth, but it was early for me. I could have only been 8 or 9 when I read this. In Cold Bony Fingers, a boy named Tomas goes hiking and brings home a skull. Later that night, a headless skeleton comes looking for it. In The Mysterious Visitor, a teenage girl gets paid a visit by a ghost while she's babysitting. The Witch's Paw is another familiar tale to readers of scary stories or those acquainted with American folklore. I'm pretty sure I read it in 3 books when I was a kid. You know the story. A boy hears a tale about a shape-shifting witch, gets accosted by a giant cat while out walking, and manages to survive by injuring the cat's paw. When he gets home, a woman familiar to him has a wound on her hand. Stephen King would use this idea with enough variation to make it his own in Cycle of the Werewolf, the book on which the movie Silver Bullet is based. The Corpse's Revenge sees a boy buried alive and scaring 2 grave robbers quite literally to death. A werewolf menaces 2 kids home alone and coming to get you. Stop That Coffin is labeled a funny fright, but its punchline is for dad joke enthusiasts only. Nightmare is a classic. You know this story from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. A young woman or girl has a dream where this face pays her a visit. The description of the face in Stamper's collection matches that depicted by Alvin Schwartz's prose and Stephen Gammell's artwork. With its stringy black hair, white face, and dark eyes, I can't help but wonder if this folktale helped inspire the ghosts that would haunt J-horror cinema in the late 90s and early 2000s. In The Stranger, a young violinist takes a shortcut through the local cemetery, and things end on a creepy note. Mummies tells of a sleepover in a museum gone wrong. The way this ends reminded me of Ray Bradbury's story The Next in Line, but with adult characters swapped out for youths. In Bloody Bones, a boy who gets a kick out of taunting the dead winds up the butt of his own joke. And finally, the reason we're here, Night Woods, follows a boy on a camping trip with his scout troop who gets lost while retrieving more firewood on a cold night. He comes upon a man sitting at another fire. The man stands up and shows the boy some long, sharp teeth before running after him. Like the teeth from In a Dark, Dark Room, The man at the fire isn't the only one out there with jagged teeth and evil intentions. I'm so happy I found this book. Night Woods is a story that has stuck with me for the better part of 30 years. And now that I've been revisiting all these stories in Night Frights, I've realized that a lot of these stories stuck with me. A lot of these other stories stuck with me as well, albeit maybe a little more subconsciously. I hope you enjoyed going down memory lane with me today. If you did, please leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.